Good evening. It is 5:31, and I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District Board of Education on Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Ms. Stoico, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Coco?
Here.
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Ms. White is not feeling well tonight, but she sends her best regards. Item B is approval of the agenda. Number 1 is a motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended the Board of Education approves the agenda of the August 28, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education, adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, treasurer, or superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Item C is our opening ceremony. Number 1 is informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of connecting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, that individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, they must notify the superintendent and/or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface comments by an announcement of their name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen. And for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the table by the sign-in book. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is September 11, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. right here in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street. Now for our Pledge of Allegiance, and welcome, Ms. Coco.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. The board's strategic plan goals are as follows. School safety. We aspire to have a welcoming environment that ensures that the physical and social well-being needs of every student and staff member are met. Academic growth. We aspire to have significant growth through personalized education for all students. We aspire to improve graduation rates so that our students are prepared for employment, enrollment, or enlistment. Engagement, inclusion, and diversity. We will ensure that every student has access to resources they need when they need it in order to be successful. Technology and systems integration. We aspire to create safe, secure, and efficient technology systems to support high-quality teaching, learning, and district operations.
Thank you, Ms. Coco. Item D is Treasurer CFO's Business Consent Agenda. Mr. Okoye.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve all items listed in the Treasurer's Consent Agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Okoye?
Yes. Minutes. And then the donations, I just wanted to point those out as we usually do. There are a lot this time, which is great. We had a number from the American Legion, our own Mr. Gomez, to the Black Tiger Family Center, the library, Young Screen Printing, Western Reserve, YMCA, lots of back-to-school supplies, household items, all sorts of different things that were donated to us that we definitely appreciate and we'll keep taking. For anyone else who wants to give, there are a lot this time.
just highlight for the Black Tiger Family Center. I know we did our big push, and some people said, "Oh, are you going to do additional drives?" I know we'll do drives around, different seasons as well, but we will take donations for that at any time if anyone wants to donate. So it's not just when we do drives that we are open to take donations for the Black Tiger Family Center anytime people have things. And then we still have here at the high school the Tigers clothing store that will take more gently used clothing items as well if people have that, because we want new clothes for the Black Tiger Family Center, but if you have gently used clothes, they'll take that here at the high school for the Tigers clothing store. So keep us in mind. We give these things away for free for people.
Mr. Gomez, I have a question about
Yeah.
that. Do they, at the Tiger store, they accept prom and homecoming dresses?
I don't know the answer to that.
Interesting you should say that. We received an invitation, I think it's tonight, because I remember saying I had to decline. It's Talmadge that is doing that for like the CTE course in marketing that are taking those dresses. So I can certainly, if that's something that you have a need for, or want to donate, I can check in on that, but they're doing it as a part of their class. Which I thought was kind of cool. We do it at the end of the year, or we did it like when prom, I think, season, they were taking dresses then. No, and not for homecoming here. We haven't done that, I don't think.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer? Aye. Ms. Coco?
Hi.
And I mean, Treasurer CFO's business, Mr. Strickling.
I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve the July 2024 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So,
Second.
Who's first?
Mr. Harris.
All right. One thing that's on here that's not typically on here every month, but it is on with all of our July stuff, is the commercial paper and bankers acceptances reports for last fiscal year. That's just a requirement that we have to submit to the auditor's office and to the Department of Education, just stating that this was our commercial activity, and it needs to be board approved. So that is, you've seen it before, but we only see it once a month, or once a year, excuse me. Well, look, we're starting a new year with interest. So we did about 270,000, which is down a little from what it was the last few months, but we are also, as I've mentioned numerous times, our construction balances are dwindling as we're paying, and in July is when we start to receive that next second half advance from the county for taxes. So we are at kind of the low point of our fund balances at the end of June into July, and then they start going back up again, and then about 6 months from then we'll see that again. So still a good number. General fund, again, starting a new year here, so we're comparing it to 24 and 23. So you can see we started receiving those advances from the county, and so we ended a little under 22 million to end July, excuse me. So that's pretty in line with what we thought it would be. I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on here of note, but I think everything else was status quo.
You could see that in the general fund, like 23 and 24, you can see that the air conditioning expense hitting in 2025, because they were so steady, and then you could see
Yep.
that expense coming out.
Yep.
And that really does make up for a significant portion of that difference
Yeah,
there.
it does. It really does.
With athletics, I had a question.
Yeah.
Just obviously, July, you don't expect the cash position to be a great situation, and then in August here, football, home football games is going to make a huge impact. Do we think, I know you made all of those changes for greater transparency within the athletic fundraising last year that we appreciate. So do you think at the end of the year it'll still end in a positive, or do you think
Yes,
we? Okay.
I think it will. That's the way it's been budgeted, is kind of based on that revenue. They are receiving that additional help from the emergency levy for uniforms and some equipment, so some of the larger pieces that they would buy. You know, the biggest expense honestly out of athletics is the officials. So, you know, those costs have gone up. So that's a part of this too, not just the fundraiser parts, but the costs as officials have gone up as they're harder to find and they're trying to retain people. So if that were to increase again throughout the year, it may pose a little bit of a concern, but I still think we'd be okay. That's something we'll monitor.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye. And your comments?
I do not have any.
Okay, item F is Superintendent CEO's business consent agenda. Dr. Selikov.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I recommend that the Board of Education approves all items listed in the superintendent's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Selikov?
Yeah, we have all routine items this evening. General, the typical personnel recommendations, extra duty, professional development, our stipends for science of reading, event workers, volunteers, again, really nothing out of the ordinary. One retirement to announce. We did receive Kelly Statt's letter that she would be retiring, so we wish her well.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year, and we had a chance to, I popped in her room the other day, and she was very, very kind and had a really nice story to tell about her, you know, history here. So, but I'm sure we'll be talking about her again as the year progresses at the end. We have the Red Oak Behavioral Health Agreement. Again, this is standard and to continue our services. Eye care is also included in this, our mentoring program, and we had some grant money to help offset that. And we have a number of rental agreements listed here, and there are a lot. So many of them are return customers, from what I understand from Mr. Fry. And then the bus routes that we are required to approve, the official bus routes. When I say official, nothing's ever official with bus routes, because my daughter's has been changed about 4 times already since the beginning of the year. So, and that's all.
Questions or comments from the board? Say. Congratulations to Kelly Stats. I know we'll have opportunities to celebrate her towards the end of the year. Stipends for science of reading, those are reimbursed from the state. And it was further a requirement from the state. So we just want to be clear to our staff, for staff that have nothing to do with reading, like some of our gym teachers, if you got nothing out of it, we apologize. It was not our requirement of you. It was a state requirement. But people like our superintendent were not exempt either.
No, I took my class this summer.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to
And
say.
she was exempt from receiving a stipend
Yes.
per law, but she was not exempt from taking the course. And just on science of reading, we found out this morning via the Beacon Journal that we got a little bit of the shaft, because we learned that not every district was honest in their reporting about their science of reading. And had every district been honest about where they were at with their science of reading reporting, we would have gotten more money from the state to help us. So Ms. Hausman did a great job explaining where we were at, and Cuyahoga Falls did a great job in that article, but it's very unfortunate that some districts were dishonest
Yeah, it was easy enough to
leading-
do because it was self-reporting.
leading to Akron Public Schools got $800,000 that they did not deserve. And our district had to pay out $300,000 of our own funds for science of reading. And that $800,000 should not have gone to Akron Public Schools, so.
Well, technically, it was closer to 500,000 in the sense that we could have used that ESSER money in a different way, but we had to use it towards, right, the reading program.
So, continues to be a very unfortunate situation. And then, just with the rental agreements, these are now board approved because it's something we looked into with legal counsel. Technically, everyone doesn't have a contract until the board approves it, and as we worked with Pepper and Wagner, it's something we came to an understanding of. So it's not to put anyone through any additional hoops, it's just a little legal requirement that we had not previously been meeting. When we, as a board, are aware of things that we were not doing that we are supposed to do, we try to correct ourselves just as we would expect anyone in the district to do. We try to do that for ourselves as well. So that's all that is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Your comments, Dr. Salka.
Thank you. Well, I think the big news would be the weather, right, this week. It's been fun and challenging. And so, as you're aware, we've had a little bit of a rough patch here. We're off to the positive note is that we've had a really smooth opening, and it was really nice, and just principals were saying how things were going so well, particularly with the cell phones, and students are being compliant and getting in the routine, and then, of course, that's disrupted with the heat. So we've had a blend of things happening. My message today was thanking parents for their patience and families for their patience, because we know that this is disruptive to a routine. But I was really hard pressed I can't imagine starting a school year and then having 3 or 4 days off, so a compromise was to do these early release. I got some feedback from teachers that I checked in with. I was in the buildings today as well as the other day, and they said that today's call of early release was probably a good one in that it got really warm around 1:30, around 1 o'clock, I think, is when it started to heat up. But it'll be warm tomorrow. We'll be in session tomorrow. We're going to make it work. We've got plans in place. I think what's disappointing is we know that we have old handlers that can't handle this heat, the demands of a 100-degree day or 90 or whatever it may be. So we did a lot of problem solving and with both our own folks as well as Lincoln and Richardson, with the companies coming in and having to do repairs there, which again is disappointing, I think, to all of us, that we just put in new air conditioning and the boards, bad equipment, bad pieces that went wrong, and so as a result we had some hallways that weren't cooled off in Richardson and Lincoln. So again, that's the reason for the early release for everyone today. We weren't sure if all of that was going to be fixed, and most of it is, except there are some areas that are mostly at the high school that are still we're working on. But I appreciate people's patience and getting through that. It's a balancing act of safety and getting, starting a school year off and wanting children to be in routines and knowing that they need to be in our schools as well. But it is warm in some areas, and that's the other thing. It varies from classroom to classroom, building to building, which also complicates things. So happy to get past that after this week. Hopefully we won't have any more hot days. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. We did have our open houses. Those seemed to go very well. I was at several of them. Many members of my team split up as we can divide and conquer those. So appreciate the families that attended. It was a nice turnout. Nice to see our families back. We had our tailgates, which I thought went really well, and I think people had fun. I appreciate the staffs from each building supplying a game and prizes for that tailgate, and Christine to orchestrate all of that and organize all of us is appreciated. And though we didn't bring home a victory that night, the band was very good, entertaining to watch, and I love our tunnel. That is very fun to see them come out of. I wanted to mention the Black Tiger Family Center. I didn't want to interrupt. I did have it on my agenda to mention. So we were supposed to have an interview yesterday, and it got canceled with Channel 5. So they do want to do a story on it. We'll see if we can get that rescheduled. I went there the other day, and most of the painting is done. We have a rug that we put in, and we're waiting on, the shelving actually might be there, or it's coming soon, and then we'll start to shelve everything with the donations that we received. And want to thank our partners. I mean, there's many, you saw who they were, but the library, the YMCA, Western Reserve Hospital, Elks was amazing, and then you see American Legion, and many of our area churches, just how they came forward to help, and so we're really appreciative of that. And thanks to our folks who did, some of the painting and getting it spruced up for us. So that we're excited to see. We will be going over there, I think Friday, to start doing some more things towards progressing, and then by next week we should start to really, shelve, and hopefully everything will be on our road to our grand opening on September 24th. And lastly, I wanted to let you know about a couple things. One, I want to inform you, and two, I want to apologize to our parents who may be listening or may get word of this message. But with the Boys and Girls Club, I think you all know me well enough to know that if we can't get perfection on something, at least let's get darn close to making things seamless for our parents and our families, and I think we failed in this regard. It's an outside agency that is working with us, and it's been a little bit of a struggle. We've been meeting with them and trying to get them to be, responsive, and as of today, we had an email that was drafted and was supposed to go out to our families today to notify them, and we were able to get, I think, just about everyone who was returning back into the sessions. We might have some complications with siblings. There's not enough spots because there are 80. But I do apologize. I know as a parent how frustrating that must be not to have an answer, because we know we have to plan childcare well enough in advance, and our families have been on hold, and I just don't think that's fair to do to them with a start date of September 9th. But I can assure you that it's not from a lack of effort on our part to deliver the customer service that we expect out of this district. So my apologies to our families. But we should be, if it didn't go out today, tomorrow, I gave a deadline of, tonight, so I don't know where it left as I left the office today, but we're getting close. And that is all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item H, board business. Number 1, adoption of the field trip handbook. It's recommended the Board of Education approves the field trip handbook for the Cuyahoga Falls City School District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a quick question about it. The attachments, they're a portion of the handbook. I didn't have the attachments. Can we approve without, the attachments are a portion of the handbook.
Most of them are links to things, but
Links.
which attachments are we?
Yeah, the links at the end, I think with the forms and such.
Okay.
We got a hard copy, but I didn't get a digital copy, so I couldn't click on any links
Oh, okay.
to see.
Yes.
And it didn't even dawn on me until today.
Yeah, I'm in them now, and I'm just trying to see if they all are opening. So it says we need access to.
Yeah.
I don't need access. So we'd have to open those up. Okay. And those came from Mrs. Hausman, so I think she has controls over those.
Yeah.
I can let her know. But you did get the hard copies, you said, right?
Yeah, yes, yes.
I will let her know that.
And I didn't get an answer on the clarification about, that I asked about on the background checks either. Do we want to postpone this?
If
the
it
next
doesn't cause
meeting?
too much of a disruption,
Would that
I'd
be
feel
okay?
better.
It's fine, yeah. Okay, so can you tell me what the question was specifically about background, and maybe Ms. Bogdan, this may pertain to you, maybe not?
Just to know when they're required and when they're not required and what the rationale was. I wasn't, because sometimes they're required, sometimes they weren't, but I wasn't
Okay.
sure what triggered that.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And that might have been in the related forms section that we didn't have access to, but I'm not sure. This is because guidelines for volunteer chaperones.
Okay.
You need to make a motion to postpone it to the September 11th meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone voting for the field trip document until the September 11th meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on postponing to the September 11th meeting? If we get those two things, will we all be set then on September 11th?
Yeah, I think it's a great document.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Motion to postpone, please call the roll.
Mrs. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
All set on that. Number 2, financial recovery plan. I could start giving some comments. So I think if we looked at what was discussed at the last meeting, there were 2 sides of the financial recovery plan. One side was selling the Robertson High School property, attrition, and the 10% open enrollment. 2 of those are things we're already doing. One of those is something that we've talked about trying to already commit to doing. So I think that is our clearest path forward. I think I've heard that's pretty clear from all board members, including Ms. White, who's not here, but I think I can say that that's pretty clear. The other side was looking at a potential building closure. And the reality of that is, obviously, it would be an elementary school. And we can say that because going forward, there's only going to be one 6-12 school. So we just want to be honest about that reality, that obviously when we say that, it would be an elementary school. But I also want to say this, nobody here at that board meeting said that that was a path that we wanted to take. We recognize that it may be a path that at some point we are forced to take due to enrollment situations. But we believe that based on attrition that we are working on, open enrollment that we are able to do, and I know there's misconceptions in the community because our prior superintendent talked about how open enrollment brought money in, but with the new funding formula, open enrollment money is assessed differently, and there's still that misconception because it was true that open enrollment just brought money in previously, but the new formula has changed how that looks, so we can do these 10% cuts. And then selling the properties, which we know what they assessed at, but we don't necessarily know until they sell what they will sell for. That's probably our clearest path forward in this financial recovery plan that we need to adopt. That doesn't mean that we're avoiding a hard conversation about enrollment, but I think the reality is if our enrollment gets to a point that we have to have that conversation, then we'll have that conversation. We've had many very, very difficult conversations as a Board of Education and with our administration, and we're not afraid to have those. But the other thing I want to say is that people in our different neighborhoods think that anytime we talk about that it must be their school. But what I want to say is that when I go to different neighborhoods, people tell me, it must be my school, it must be my school, it must be my school. Number one, we have not made any decisions because we haven't had that conversation here at this table. So it's not necessarily anybody's school. Number two, that's not what we're talking about here tonight. And number three, if we get to that point of having those conversations, we'll be open and honest about what schools we may be talking about and have those honest conversations out here with our community. So I think all of that is just to be honest about what is on the table tonight, what's not on the table tonight, and where we might have to go in the future. And I just want to assuage some concerns, but also be honest about what our enrollment may force us to have to talk about in the future. And I think all of that is to be honest with our community, but to be fair about where we are at this evening.
Thank you. What I gave you is kind of what Ms. Coco had asked me to put together And I'm gonna kind of explain it. So the top sheet gives you an example of real numbers from this year. So these are by attrition, our replacements, basically our comings and goings. How did that net out? Now, anything that's highlighted in yellow in there, and you guys have access to this in Google Drive, and so there's more details, but in order to make it kind of readable on a page paper, I kind of hid some of the columns just so you could see the general idea. So anything in yellow is just, I don't have that information yet. It may be that that person hasn't elected their benefits yet, or they haven't officially been hired yet, depending on what it is. There's not many there, but you can see some. So first of all, that overall will help because it is a savings at the end. It will not be that much, but it'll be a larger number, and so that will help that deficit in the future years starting off. So this is kind of, this encompasses everything, but this encompassed any enrollment things we looked at from building to building, where we could maybe possibly transfer some people in order to save some ways through attrition. And so this is admin, teachers, class, all staff. So that's an example of what like a year looks like when we do this. Again, like I said, this isn't all attrition type thing. Some of these are just simply somebody left, they're at a higher salary because they're at the end of their tenure, they retired, and we're hiring someone else who's not, we save a little bit of money that way too with that. So that is that. The second page is, second 2 pages I should say, is kind of what we've been working on when we're talking about moving to the 612 campus and what we feel our needs will be. Obviously this is all in draft form for the most part. We haven't made solid decisions on some of these things yet. You'll see some blank yellow highlights. We haven't gotten that far yet. So there could potentially be more savings in there. But this lists kind of all the positions that are housed between the middle school and high school, what's current, and then what we're anticipating that we'll need when we go to the 612 campus. Again, these are flexible numbers, but it gives you a kind of a general idea of what we're looking at. And so if you go to the last page, you'll kind of see those anticipated net reductions, which are a combination of both certified and classified staff. And there could potentially be more, but again, this would be through attrition as much as we can to reduce some of these that, especially when the middle schools come together, that maybe you need in 2 separate buildings, but you don't need if you're all in one just because of what the numbers dictate. So this is something that we're also looking at, that it would be a future reduction of some positions there that we will need. So that is also coming. It's a little harder at the elementary level. That's why I gave you kind of the example of this year more so, because we don't know how many kindergartners will sign up. We don't necessarily know, who's even in this, like who's resigning, who's retiring. You can see on this page, we did a lot of different transfers around based on enrollment numbers, where we didn't, have to eliminate anyone individually. We eliminated some positions, but shifted around based on people that either retired or resigned throughout the year. So this was to give you kind of some hard figures of what potentially things could look like in the future years if we continued kind of the same philosophy and had about the same number of, people that were leaving, and then our needs were also about the same. So this is obviously, I do want to point out, like, this is obviously more This is a cumulative effect. So when you do this, you're saving this every year as well. And so that's helpful. Certainly, you're getting more, you're saving that each year. The sale of buildings is a one-time infusion, which will definitely help. But you don't see it like you see some of these other savings over year over year over year. So.
I think, thank you for this. I think really that leads to this part of the discussion for our financial stability is that there really are two pieces to this. There is the money that we can gain one time and help us right the ship financially. And then there is the, what are we going to do to keep us moving in the right direction, which will entail those cost savings that we can do that are year after year, and how are we reducing that and making those decisions to keep us going long term. So it's really a two-piece puzzle, if you will.
So if we run our 5-year forecast with sale of buildings, open enrollment, attrition plus this, what's that gonna look like?
It'll probably be pretty close to netting about zero in that third year. But then that fourth year will probably still be negative.
Because we don't have the value of the sale of the buildings in year 4.
Only because there's such a short, and part of it is there's such a short time, like any staff savings, like we have this year, and so that's gonna, accumulate before that third year, 3 times. Anything in the future we do is a little less. So this is like, what we're doing now is giving us, pushing it out a little bit more because you're saving it in all 5 years of the forecast.
Right, okay.
Whereas as you go out and do that savings, cumulatively it's less, each time because of that. But we were about 4 million in May. There's not any, other than, what I'm showing you here, and barring anything unexpected as far as any kind of emergency or anything like that, I anticipate it to be somewhere around that same balance at the end of year 3 without doing any of these items. You will take into account, these savings on staff this year, staff and benefits, times 3, basically. Will affect that third year, and then sale of buildings as a one-time is probably going to put you pretty close to that 4 million plus with any additional next year, same type of thing going next year and the year after with that. But we will be at, I still think in year 4, even if we keep at this pace, because I'm trying to remember exactly, that was a much larger balance. Again, now, keep in mind, we had a very large health insurance increase. were forecasted, I think, between 8 and 10% over the years. Other than this last year, it had never been that high. And so we are kind of hoping that was a one-time right the ship type thing, and that we will not see those double-digit numbers again. So if those do come in under that 8 to 10% that we have forecasted, that will impact the forecast as well, and it will impact it cumulatively, obviously. That's a big piece usually of the forecast is that insurance renewal. We don't get that till the end of the year, so April is usually when we get that information and vote on it as a consortium. So that is a big piece there. That could affect this. Again, like I said, we're hoping that was a one-time back on track kind of for everybody, and we'll resume around normal levels. Because we did have a very good, I think it was, as long as I've been here, I want to say since 2018 or 2019, we hadn't seen anything more than about 5% in a year now. I don't know what, it's hard to say because the healthcare industry can be volatile and you just don't know what's going to, happen to individuals that are on our plan or overall what the healthcare industry is going to do, whether they're going to continue to increase their prices like they do. So that is a component to that, but that's all unknown as well.
So this, which is just what happened this year, this was not reflected in May's forecast, was it?
Correct.
So that's, in year 2 should be 1.6 million, year 3 should be 2.4 million.
Yes.
1.6, 2.4. And then this, we don't have a value for yet.
We do not, no. We can estimate, what average position costs. I think when I looked today, and I didn't do it, it would depend on who's leaving, how we're determining that. I took what did I take? The lowest the bottom of the salaries, and I think it was around salary and benefits. That was around 550,000. But again, that's just
550 for this would be the guesstimate.
And that was based on lowest salaries, which we know it's not necessarily going to be the lowest salaries. Was on the conservative end then, because it depends on who leaves, how things are shifted and things like that. Another piece too is that there are 3 years that are estimates for negotiations and salaries. And so we typically estimate what trend has been, which has been around average 2%. So years 3, 4, and 5 all have 2% plus steps, which is really by that point right around 4, a little bit less percentage-wise. So obviously those negotiations haven't taken place, so those are just based on trend as well.
The 4.255 million is definitely should be taken care of, projected. And then we're working on fiscal year 2028.
Is this also the assumption that, did you say that the levy passes? Or any levies?
Yeah, if they're renewed,
If
yes.
they're renewed, I should say, and
Yeah.
that's factored in.
Yeah, if they're
Because that could be.
So, 2028 in May was about 12.5 million. Now again, you're really compounding a lot of assumptions at that point, which is really why they only look at the first 3 years when they're really trying to gauge, because those numbers, by the time you
But next
shift
November,
those
that's our
forward.
year 3, so if we're actually
Correct.
trying to be the proactive people we're trying to be,
Right.
Correct.
And I've only got us to 3.6 off of that so far.
Yeah, and that's a huge, the insurance becomes a huge cumulative effect, that can be a potential savings if that, again, it can also go the other way like it did this year, which is part of the reason we're in this position really, is because of how hard we were hit with that.
And I get how you're saying that the sale of the buildings doesn't compound, like in the, but we also then have that money too, so.
Yes.
It accounts like
Yes.
in some way, like
Yeah.
it doesn't compound, so I don't wanna compound
Yes,
it.
you're-
And
you're-
just calculate, but it like
You're
in
not
some
starting
way.
at, you're
Yeah, like-
negative in the year where you're starting out the next year is less.
Yeah, it goes above my accounting skills, but like, I get what you're saying, I'm not gonna compound it into my 3.6 that I'm doing here.
Yes.
But at the same time,
It does change the number in
it
the
does
next
change
year.
the number a little
Yes.
bit, so,
It would just change them exactly whatever the sale was
Yes.
each year. Yeah.
so that cuts us down a little, it cuts us down a little bit as well, so.
Have we also taken into effect that once the sale of those buildings happen, like our projected maintenance and things like that?
So that's not in there right now. That, there was a partial of it in the May forecast because, but not a lot. It was pretty conservative. It was kind of just the major things that we had done at like the high school and middle school. We know with the half-mil permanent improvement that we have, per the OFCC with this project, that will be what is used to take care of any kind of major repairs or maintenance on the new building. So we wouldn't need to use the general fund. Now, it's only $500,000, and hopefully there's, not anything relatively soon. We've been collecting that. It's got a balance, but it's not a huge sum that we're collecting, each year on that. But utilities, those kinds of things, have not necessarily been factored in, only because it's hard to also factor in the other side of it, like, well, what does it cost in a new building? Compared to what obviously there's savings, but to what degree? And then on the flip side, there may be other increases that we're just not, you know what I mean? We talked about transportation being one of those. That we will need more bus drivers, most likely now that we would be busing high school students again. So, or to the building, along with the middle school. So, there's
So
that.
really, any costs that we would be saving are gonna more than likely be absorbed in another area of our,
Potentially,
possibly,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
It's hard.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
it is hard to say, just because we don't have actual, we don't have anything. Like, once we're in but we can estimate, and get a good idea, which I'll probably, collectively look at those buildings now that that's getting closer and put something, in there. But before it, it was farther off, that it was really hard to predict, what the shape of everything would be once we're in that building. And it still really won't become clear until we actually probably go through a year in the building, to really see, what are our utilities, and how do they compare, not only separate buildings versus one, but older systems versus new. You will most likely see savings, but that's the other thing too, with the way inflation has been, and some things they've been increased in cost, and how that kind of, whether that is a staying thing or whether things start to fall back down a little bit. So there's a lot of variables, a lot of potential for savings, but also a lot of potential for unknown things. That I think that's my biggest concern about. That was my concern in May about forecasting any of that, because on the flip side, I also don't know what increases, may potential, we know transportation, but don't know how many, bus drivers it will be. I don't know how much more fuel we may use because of that, or how much, things like that. So at that point, we kind of kept it that it would net itself out. That may not be the case at the end of the day, and I would assume it's probably, we will see savings, but to what degree?
Right.
Don't know till we know.
And it depends on things, just like from year to year, even in the same buildings. Was it a bad winter? Was it not a bad winter? Was it, is it excessively hot? And things like that. So we may have something where we have a lot in plow and salt in that kind of stuff. But if it's a good winter, you don't have all that. You may not have as much overtime. You may not have as, there's just a lot of things at play.
Based on my conservative calculations, we were down to about a $6 million deficit in 2028 right now. Conservatively. That's with things not going super great. I try to, budget that way. I don't want to say, that's with the sales going on the lower side and, different things and stuff like that. It would be about, based on May's forecast,
Yeah.
it would be at about 6 million. So,
And we talked about it last time, but I do think within the course of these 5 years from now until 29, that we will need some sort of additional infusion of revenue.
and I think,
Whether that's an operating or permanent improvement that relieves some of the operating budget type thing. But, that will be about, 2029 would be 10 years since receiving any new operating money. And that new operating money was, I don't want to say only, but it was only 4 mils, so it's not like it was in combination, so in total, yes, but just operating funds, it wasn't excessive compared to some of the other ones that we've done. It is a large sum of money, but it is not our largest that we have. That's, about 8 years is a typical life cycle.
we're stretching our dollars. I'm proud of what we're doing to stretch our dollars. I think when we get to that point, which is not this year because we're on the ballot, and probably not next year because we'll be on the ballot because we're in that renewal cycle, that unfortunately. So we know this year and next year are probably not the years for that, as we're in this renewal cycle currently. But I could be convinced to give it a go at a permanent improvement levy again. I know that historically that has not been super successful in our community, but I think that there has to be a time when you stop saying historically that hasn't been successful and give it another go, perhaps. Because I think that we have, and one, I think you can do a lot with not a huge millage on a permanent improvement levy. So I think that's a great selling point for the community. You don't always need a huge millage amount on a permanent improvement levy to have a huge impact. So I think that is a great selling point. And I also think that we would only need that for our elementary buildings because of what we have for our 612 campus. So I think there's a lot of good selling points for that. It could be lower millage than if we just went for operating again and kept using all of our operating funds for permanent improvement. We probably need a higher millage rate as well. So I could probably be easily convinced to go that path because I think there's a lot of really good selling points to go that way.
I would agree. most places have some version of a permanent improvement, that really does help their operating budget. We use our operating budget for all of those items. I think it's a little bit more sellable, because of the restrictions, because of the things. There are things you will physically be able to see improvement, similar to the way we use the emergency levy. Those are improvements you can see where your tax dollars are being spent and what's happening. So that to me is a better path than just a strict operating levy, because I think it is needed, because we don't have it, and the way we do use our emergency levy and operating funds, that there is obviously a need for, that kind of funding here. Just got,
Yeah, it went from me to him.
well, it just filled my eye.
Yeah. It came out of nowhere.
So, that would be the path that I would suggest that you lean towards. Obviously, that's future down the road, but I just think there's a number of things you could do with that would help the overall operating budget.
Yeah, I think definitely. I also want to say, I think, a 5-year forecast is meant to be a tool, and I'm also very proud of our district for actually using our 5-year forecast as a tool. I mean, we're sitting here tonight talking about year 5 of our forecast and how we can plan to be solvent in year 5. And there's not a lot of districts I know of, because I'm a nerd and watch other people's school board meetings, that actually talk about trying to be solvent in year 5 when they have a deficit in year 5. So I am going to give us a little bit of a pat on the back, because this is hard work, but it's work that we're trying to do, because you can't just say that you care about education if you're not trying to put the work in to try to find ways to make sure that we have the resources to make the education happen in our district. And we signed up for the fun stuff and the hard decisions. What more from administration do you need from us as a board on this topic?
I mean, I think for me, just because I typically handle, the calls that come in about sales of properties, et cetera, and people voicing, took a call the other day again. So I think, even though we know it's, a year and a half out or whatever it may be, or closer to 2 years, what that time frame would look like, when we want to actively pursue sales of properties. Because I have people just lingering out there, they stay in touch with me, and so that would be helpful for me on that strategy.
We could set an executive session for our next meeting to have conversations about that.
Okay.
That's a topic for that. Does that work?
Yeah.
Board? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, please.
Perfect. Anything else more that you need from us? We want to make sure we're giving you what you need from us in terms of direction, so that you can be successful in what you need before we move on. Okay.
I have a question.
Mrs. Schaefer?
With future levies and with the restrictions on what we can talk about with the levies, would any of this information be stuff that would be used as statements of fact for upcoming levies?
That's being drafted primarily by Ms. Stoichler right now for potential approval at our 9/11 meeting.
Okay,
Thanks.
Does that help?
it does, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay. Item 3 is strategic plan discussion. Do you wanna give us a little update? I know you had a little
Yeah.
update of where we're at. Dr. Salka.
Yeah, so we have been, Chris and I have been kind of working in tandem here, drafting letters and getting it all prepared for when we have the groups selected. We have come up with, we met with Jeff Ferguson, who will be conducting our strategic plan, for those that are listening, through the ESC. And we came up with 6 groups, well, really it's 5, but there's a combination there. So for focus groups, it's administration, staff, students, and then parents and parent groups, and then the business and community leaders. We are going to have him come to our Business Advisory Council meeting, which will also span a couple, like, more people as well. And then we will add probably another meeting for, or invite them to the BAC meeting with the mayors and councils and our city leaders. So those were kind of what we identified for our stakeholder groups. And then what I explained to Jeff, and I'm not sure, so again, our letter is ready to go. We have a draft of it that we want to send out actually next week if we're ready to go. But I explained to Jeff the results of our retreat and how we sort of, came up with a template or a framework in which to work about the culture of caring, if you all recall the CFS. So the culture of caring, the facilitating our financial future, and steering student achievement. And I know we had lots of discussion about that. And then we had a lot of bullet points under each one of those, and I've shared this with Cabinet and our admin team in general at our board retreat, or I'm sorry, at our admin retreat. But so under like caring, we had safety and SEL, and that's where we would encompass all the well-being and our inclusiveness of students, so that kind of comes under the culture of caring. And then our financial future, we know we just sat here and had a lengthy discussion about what's coming up, and so what does that look like? What's our financial forecast, our plan for our future buildings? We know that we're going to need elementary buildings. What's the timing on that? What are we going to repair, et cetera? And then looking at our enrollment, and as we had talked about, open enrollment as well. So that would be under that area. And then student achievement is obviously certainly our academic growth and our data, our strategies, our pedagogy, our graduation, personalization is still in there, our preschool programming, our special education gifted, and where all of those kind of fall underneath. So what I've asked Jeff to do, and it's certainly not too late, so we can change course, but I've asked him, what I suggested is, we learned that when you do stakeholder groups, you don't ever want to mislead anybody or waste anyone's time. That's just been a rule that I live by. If I'm going to solicit input from people, I'm going to listen and use it in some capacity, or at least explain why I'm not. So what we would do then is kind of give them the framework of those 3 areas, and then generate conversation off of each of those areas. Because I think what we did initially was kind of identify our goal areas, the 3 that I just mentioned, obviously. And then getting feedback in each one of those bullet points from people and what they would like to see. So they're giving us maybe more specific information, but working within the confines of those 3 areas that the board has chosen. So we want to be clear with the people up front, because we appreciate their time and investment. So so Jeff is aware of our approach and our strategy, and he was going to design a way in which to solicit input based on what I just described. And that's how far we've gotten.
Are parents and parent group in separate groups? Or is one
No, it's going to
parents
be
and
all,
parent group?
right. So
Okay.
I think the board was going to give me a couple of names, principals, each one of you are going to give me names, principals are going to give a name, and then we'll reach out to some of our parent group leaders that we already have, because we have to get them to identify themselves. So as groups, so we have their contact information.
Got it.
Questions or comments from the board?
What is the timeline for that?
So focus groups will be done in like early October.
Okay.
And so he will gather that information, synthesize it, give it to our team to kind of go through, and then we'll have a report for all of you to kind of hear the preliminary results, and then we kind of take it from there. But we believe by January, we will have a pretty solid plan ready to go.
Are we attending those?
We did not
Focus groups?
include you, however, you are more than welcome to come. It's just that because we did the work up front, maybe
Yeah.
Jeff thought that that was your work and your direction,
Okay.
you've given us the direction to go. But if you would like
We're
to.
not
come.
excluded, but we're not
Right.
necessary.
Yes, that was Jeff, not me, no, we had talked about
That's
that.
fair, that's fair.
I'm confused on parent groups, because I thought it was the principal chooses one person, the board chooses one person.
Yes.
But now parent groups are also gonna be in there?
Some of our, yes, our parent leaders is what we were thinking, like
I thought it was just,
PTA, PTOs.
I would do that separately. I would, because I think then we're diluting the voices of the people that the principals and the board are choosing. If you want parent group people, some of them are parents, some of them are not parents. But that is a different perspective than sometimes. I would do parents, like invited parents from the principals and the board separate. And if you want to do parent groups, I would do that separately, because I think those are, if you're inviting them as parent group people, you're asking them for a perspective as a parent and as someone who's involved in that group. And they'll give you good feedback, but in my experience, in 7 years on the board, is they'll give you different feedback depending on how you invite them.
Yeah, and what I don't know is if, I think he uses a similar approach, or the same approach to every group. Like, I don't know if it's the same set of questions. That I didn't really get into with him, because if it's the same question, then I don't know if that would impact it or not. But
You make a,
obviously students would be different.
and I didn't think about that till you just said that. Also, I think when you, like a parent that's not in the parent groups and in the parent group, they are two different perspectives, but like one might, like I might be a little bit more shy about voicing my opinion with someone who's been this experienced person in the district for many, many years, and like maybe someone that's younger in the district or something like, and you might not get a, I don't know.
I mean,
It's hard to say what I'm thinking on that.
Yeah,
Some of the parents could be overshadowed.
Yeah, I might be
by-
timid. I have a kindergartner and a first grader, and I might be timid to talk to someone who this is my third kid in the district, and they're in high school now. You've seen a lot, and their opinion is very valuable, but I might not want to share my perspective because it's not the same as other. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that approach, but I will do it. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. Jeff will take our lead.
I'm
If
sure
that
it'll
is
be
the-
fine.
Yeah, if that's the preference, he will just add another group. It's not a problem, honestly. It's not a big deal.
So they are together. So I listed the
They
six.
are as they are now, yes. And again, we haven't sent anything out.
So
that's
administration, staff, students, parents, and parent groups, and community leaders. If they're separate, that's the 6 groups.
fine. Right, that would be
Did you say 5 or
6.
6?
That would, right now, I think we actually have 5.
Oh,
But we
okay,
could
I'm
make
sorry,
it 6.
misunderstood.
Yeah, the 5 that you see here would be the ones
Okay.
that we.
6-2.
I thought you had said.
Well, is anyone else being invited, or are they,
I'm not looking at my paper.
is anyone else being invited, or is it just everyone who's in these groups? can come?
It's all staff. We're gonna open up to all staff because we know we'll get a manageable number, I'm sure. Administration, we're using a ed meeting, one that's already established, an admin meeting for that. Students will be around 12, and the principal will select high school, a mix, not just seniors, but a variety of students at the high school. And then we talked about, so the parent and parent groups would be your 4th group there, unless we tease those out. And then the business and community leaders would be at our business advisory council, but we would invite the community leaders to attend with them on that morning. And some of them already are part of it, so it actually works. Our fire chief, our police chief, for example. But if you want to separate those two, it's not a problem.
Well,
I think some of the names that were brought forth from the board are probably people that would fit into the parent organization group. Or there may be some overlay.
But maybe
I
we
don't
would
know.
have
I
picked
kind of thought that
different
we-
people
Yeah.
if we would have known.
The parent group people would be like PTA, probably leaders of PTA or PTO, PTSO, any of those. And then we just have a few, honestly, we just sent the letters out, there's very few other groups. So it's just a few, a handful.
So you've already sent the letters out?
For the other reason, for the 503C, et cetera, to be board approved as an established group.
Oh,
Those letters, yeah. So they would be the same people.
oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
But I will tell you that 2 of them are staff members, so I probably wouldn't include them in this. So, because they're teachers.
Is the feedback, like, and you may not know this because you're not conducting this, is it all conducted verbally, or are they writing down their, like, is it just an open discussion thing, or are they turning in papers at the end, that kind of
To
thing?
refer to my notes, we met with them so long ago, but I think they do, in my experience in doing these many times, sometimes it's breakout groups, you know, and brainstorming and writing things on paper. Other times he's facilitating and writing. But I would imagine they'd break up at some point into groups, and I can get more specific information from him on his actual approach. I know I took notes, I'd have to find them. Oh, in fact, maybe I do have it. No, not here. But I can get that from him, his specific
Yeah,
approach.
I guess my point to asking that was if there's written feedback that's being done and other things within that group, if some of the concerns are that some parents may be overshadowed or not voice or voice differently because of the group being together, if it's not just shouting things out and it's a more,
No, it's controlled.
you know,
That I
it's a
do
more
know, yeah.
controlled
Yeah.
environment or a smaller, you know, like small groups and stuff, that might not be as much of an
Yeah,
issue.
his approach is
Or
structured.
written, you know, written feedback that they're turning in or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the case. I think it's
I don't
more.
know.
But I can
It's more
find out.
I
of a
guess
participation thing.
I'm struggling with every administrator, every staff person gets to have their voice heard if they want, the majority of which don't live in our district. But if I'm a parent, I have almost zero opportunity to be chosen to have feedback. That's what I'm struggling with, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm really struggling with that. Because we hear from parents a lot, and they have a lot to say.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we can fix everything that they would want fixed, but our parents have a lot to say, and the ones that do have a lot to say, I don't think this process is gonna sit well with them. And if I'm a community member that cares about education, and I'm not on the Business Alliance Council, I have no opportunity, there's no possibility of me ever participating in this. For instance, Leslie Frank, who comes to all of our school board meetings,
If I'm,
she would have no opportunity to have an,
those are both valid points. I can just tell you in my previous experience, again, having done this and in this district, offering parents opportunities to come and speak, the size of the groups are very manageable. So if we literally put out an email and invited every parent to come, you probably would still have a manageable focus group size, based on my experience with inviting parents to give participation. So that is also, I think, a viable strategy if that's what you would like to do. Then you're not excluding anybody. I think it's workable.
And I think, you know, I agree with that. Like, we've been to open
yeah.
meetings where everyone has been invited and the numbers have not been very high, so, but I think giving that opportunity to everyone would be a good thing to do, along with inviting, you know, the ones that we have identified
Yeah.
to come.
We can do the same, honestly, for the community.
I think it's better to have given them the opportunity. We've made it clear, we have a framework. the framework isn't changing, but we want the feedback to inform the framework. You know, like the CFS framework that we've created. So I don't think having more feedback is a bad thing or overwhelming, because it's not going to change the framework of the main objectives of what we need to do, because we know what we need to do, and we're seeing the progress of when we buckle down and do it under the leadership that we have in this district, and we're seeing those positive results. So I don't think it's gonna like blow up the direction.
No, I really don't either.
You know, but I also think it'll also get more buy-in. And it also always gives us, one of the things I believe very strongly is, it also always gives us the opportunity to make sure people know they had the opportunity. Because it's easy for people to be upset about things when they never had an opportunity to provide feedback, but when they come and say, why are we doing it this way? Well, we begged you to help us, guide us, and to give us direction, and you didn't show up, or you could have, you know, if you couldn't show up, you could have at least emailed a board member. We're all very responsive, you know, and we would have, you know, sent your email on to Mr. Ferguson for inclusion as well. So I think that also helps us as well as we're trying to move forward in that direction. So it's not to be critical, but
Could we also like include that in the invitation if you are unable to attend, if you have any?
that would be probably something we need to communicate with Mr. Ferguson before I commit him to that, but.
Is that unreasonable to have a conversation about, you think?
No, but I don't wanna
makes
say
it.
it here tonight, but,
Yeah, I don't know how big that makes it when we say something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I captured it. If that's the approach we'd like to do, we can do a broad community invitation as well. And then we would select the community leaders, you know, the fire, the chief, police,
Yeah, I think
council.
having it at the BAC, I'm not
Yeah.
critical of that at all.
And then we'll do the
Because
community.
you have a captive audience as
Okay.
well, I think that's a great idea, that's not,
Okay. Okay, I think I get it.
are we okay with that? Or, I don't wanna,
Are they separated out or are they together?
they would be
Parent group.
separate.
Okay.
No, not parent group, because it would be like a parent,
That will just become.
it would be a parent night
Got it.
and a community
Okay.
night.
If we have a gigantic response, would it become two groups or would we have to narrow down?
We could probably.
And you don't have to answer that right now, I guess. Whatever Mr. Ferguson thinks is appropriate.
Yeah, we'll need to probably think about an RSVP, just so we're prepared. We'll probably do it. We plan on using this library. Okay.
I know in my heart we have a gigantic response.
And I hope we do, but I just, you know, people are busy and, not that they don't want to be here, I'm sure they do, but interference with work and schedules, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll get you some answers.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4 is future agenda items. Our next meeting, we are recognizing our top readers along with the Cuyahoga Falls Library and with Mrs. Hausman, so that'll be exciting. We're also going to honor the library because they were the top collection site for the Black Tiger Family Center, so a little double duty that evening. And then, as we know, we'll also have, we said we'll have that executive session to talk about sale of property. So that's what I have right now. Anything else? I think at the second meeting in September, we hope to be able to have a report card presentation. I think that was our goal. Things can change depending on when they end up releasing them, but
Yeah.
that's
I'm sorry, did you say report card?
report card,
Okay.
state report card. Tentative goal, second meeting in September,
Okay.
Okay.
pending. Oh yeah, and do you want to do that next meeting, Esther?
I have ESSER and emergency levy, which I could do together because neither one of them are that, I mean, first we spent out the remainder of the money, which in ESSER, which was not a lot, and then just the last year kind of recap of what we did with emergency.
You just wanna do the final recaps,
Yeah,
just the
Yep.
piece
Yep.
from last time to this time.
yep, that's all, yeah. I
Thank
have-
you.
Yep, that's all I got.
Appreciate it.
You say
Okay.
next
Is that,
meeting?
which meeting is that?
That's next meeting?
Next meeting,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Anything else I'm missing, board? Okay. Number 5, committee reports. Construction core team is Blake's not here, is there anything, Dr. Salvo, that we need to?
I don't know that we had one since the last meeting. We do have a design team meeting and a core meeting coming up, so I don't think we haven't had one since the last meeting when she reported up.
Athletics and activities,
Nothing yet.
board policy, nothing at this time to report. This Alliance, you have a meeting in September.
Yep.
Wellness.
We're gonna meet in 2 weeks
Okay.
on Thursday.
Financial Advisory Committee, you had a meeting.
We did. We talked about a lot of the same things that we discussed this evening, the financial recovery plan. We talked a little bit about the building project and the stadium, and we talked about levies and the need for a permanent improvement levy and continuing the emergency levy. And then we kind of touched on, like in the future, like elementary, what would that look like in the district? Are we gonna rebuild them? Are we gonna spruce them up and that kind of thing? All possibilities.
Thank
It was
you.
a small, mighty group.
Foundation Alumni Association, I wasn't able to make the last meeting because I was healing from my concussion, and it not a fun time. But I know I read the minutes, so they talked about some of their endowments and how to manage those, and as well as kicking off their new membership campaign for the year. And then the other thing was that they made a decision not to financially support the Black Tiger Family Center.
Yep. That's accurate.
Legislative Liaison, Mr. Harris?
Nothing.
And then Ms. White is not here for Student Achievement Liaison, but those district leadership team meetings will be starting up soon. Number 6, comments, Mrs. Schaefer?
It's beginning of the school year. I went to senior night for cross country, and I had actually never been to a cross country meet before, so that was interesting because I had something pictured in my head, and like a track lined up on the ground, but I didn't know it was just some cones and everything. Those kids ran their heart out. It was senior night, so they had a little senior presentation, and the coach read what they had filled out about themselves, and then just spruced it up just a little bit. It was nice. I think there was 9 graduating seniors on the cross country team. I went to a couple open houses too. I went to DeWitt, and as I was leaving, there was a little kid that was just there playing on the playground. He's like, "Hey, what's going on at the school?" And I was like, "Oh, it's open house." And he's like, "Oh, my mom has dropped me off for the playground." I said, "Do you attend the school? Are you going to come into the open house?" He's like, "My mom's going to come back. Can I go in and look at my classroom if my mom's not here?" I'm like, now there's the principal right there. You go ask her. But he was just so excited for the school year to start, and he was so excited to look at his classroom and see his teachers. It's nice to see a student ready to come back and excited to come back into the building. And then I went to Preston as well, and they're ready with that stay in the game, big, like a paper on the wall with the field on it so they can put their little players on. So, everyone's excited to get back to school, which we are in. And then the Tiger tailgate, a beautiful night. It was a little hot for me, but it was so much fun. And then I got a baby foam finger, and I cannot wait for the football games to hold up my Let's Go. It's tiny, it's like a little baby. But I will be wearing it and using it, and the pom-poms that I won from the Price game. So, good. Excited to be back.
Thank you. Ms. Coco?
Yes, I also was at the Tiger tailgate. It's thank you to all the hard work and everyone that participated in putting that together. And it is nice to see all the different building administrators there with the games and welcoming our families at the beginning of the year as well. And then, of course, the first football game. I wanted to just comment on the difference I have seen security-wise in previous times and where it is now. And I just want to, again, just thank Ben and everyone who is involved in that. And I was not immune from getting checked and making sure that my kid had to have their badge too and show it and get their hand stamped. And of course, I appreciate that I'm not different than anyone else. I would never expect to be. So I just wanted to give a shout out about that. And then tag day was this past Saturday. I waited and waited with my money and no one came by my house. They always do, and I had to leave. And I was able to catch them and look like the crazy lady stopping in the middle of the street to give someone my money. That was, but I knew the band student. It was fine. She didn't think it was a weird stranger. But I know that overall $21,000 was that the amount that was raised on Tag Day.
Wow.
So thank you to our community and the support that they show. And looking forward to September 10th for the Fresh Farm Party. I know we're not going to have another meeting till after that, so I just wanted to mention that. It's one of my favorite things that we get to attend. And I actually took that day off work because we have so much going on that day. So that way I didn't have to worry about my other responsibilities that day. So that's it. I'm glad we're back and that there was, I know, the hot weather, but other than that, I've heard nothing but positives about the smooth opening to the beginning of the school year.
Thank you. I'm up next. I made it to Bullock and then Roberts for middle school open house nights. I worked the door at Bullock because it was a little bit chaos as they all were lined up. And I thought when Mr. Oswald went and unlocked the doors, like reminiscent of like 2004 at like Walmart on Black Friday, I thought it was just going to get stormed and knocked over because they were ready to go, like right at those doors. And he was like, oh, I was like, oh God. And so I just started directing traffic, and I got his line down in 10 minutes. So he said, I was hired.
You're hired.
I can come back next year for the last year at Bullock and direct his line again because I got those people in and where they needed to go right quick and in a hurry. So, and then made my way over to Roberts as well. And already purchased, I was a Bullock kid, so I already purchased my commemorative Bullock shirt as well. But I'll purchase any commemorative shirt that's sold even if I didn't go to that school. So if people want to do fundraisers, you just let me know. I'll buy all the commemorative shirts. I'm proud to be part of Cuyahoga Falls City Schools even if I didn't go to the shirt, but definitely buying if I went to the school. And then made it over to Lincoln Open House as well with my nephews, so that was always fun. And just all the great resources that they have available. I appreciate our social workers being present, promoting the Stay in the Game initiative, which I also think we should promote, because the Stay in the Game has the 10-day tracker, and we talked a lot about that 10-day attendance policy and how important it is, but also how confusing it is, as we remember. But I think that Stay in the Game tracker is really can be useful because it has the 10 days in green, and I think we should promote that to families as well because you can track your 10 days on that. So I was trying to get Rebecca Miller saying, see, we can combine two things in one here. You can use it for your Stay in the Game tracker. You can also use it for your board policy 10 days excused tracker. So dual purpose on that. Dual purpose on those Stay in the Game trackers. And then the Tiger Tailgate was phenomenal as well. So just look forward to celebrating more successes as the year goes along because every year it just seems that we have more and more successes to celebrate. And as Board of Education member, that's one of the best parts is to get to sit here and celebrate and honor all the wonderful things that our staff and students and community does. Mr. Harris.
Yeah, I will be brief. Just welcome back, everybody. It's exciting. Dr. C, I'll be reaching out to you soon to see if I can do some building visits with you. I'd like to, see how folks are doing. And then just give a shout out to you and Miss Stewart for convocation. It was incredible. I couldn't stay the entire time, but I will tell the story. I think I text you. I was sitting next to this bus driver who's been in district for quite some time, I think 10 years. She said she's been attending those convocations, and she's like, oh my God, they're just such a drag. And she's like, these last couple years have been fantastic, though. So excited. So I'll let you guys know that. So folks were very excited. But no, just excited to be back. As Mr. Gomez said, I'm looking forward to, getting back into the routine here of honoring our students and staff at our meetings here. It's, again, one of the most exciting things we do, and just looking forward to the year. So thank you.
Thank you. Item I is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
We're adjourned at 7:02.
Go.
Aye. Do I have to stay?
Your votes was an aye.
And leave.
My mind was thinking about something else with this. I read Ms.
Did
White
she
said
say-
Ms. Coco.
Did they say what the commitment is for the focus groups?
I think it was in the email.
I gotta go back and
It's
look,
gonna be
okay.
Chris on
That's all I heard back from my person I texted during the meeting.
If it's not, I'm sorry. I feel like I asked that question and I think
Yeah,
I
he
was.
was, we drafted it, he did most of it, and
Are we including multilingual, like doing special invitations and making sure that our multilingual families will have like interpreters?
yeah, we would, oh,
And like,
if they come to that night?
If they
Oh,
come, then.
no, I would say, the answer is no, but if we need to do it, we'd have to plan it.
Well, if we do RSVPs.
Then we'll know.
Yeah, because that's the family engagement things we were talking about.